we're here at New York Comic Con in the Newsarama Skybox. I'm Grace Randolph.
I'm Justin Tyler.
And we're here with Ryan Patrick McGuffey and Des Doyle. They are the team producer and director of the new documentary Showrunners.
Yes, indeed.
Well, let's set it up. I feel like the term showrunner is just sort of reaching the world. They know what it is and get it. But just in case, set it up for everybody.
Showrunner is a term that refers to a person or persons involved with running a TV show, every aspect of it, creative, logistic, writing, production. They are the person that needs to deliver an episode of a show on time and on budget for the network or the studio. Captain of a ship, trying to prevent it sinking, hitting an iceberg, basically.
It's sort of like for a movie, the director fulfills that role, and the showrunner is like sort of the ultimate responsibility manager and like creative force.
Yeah, exactly. They are the vision of the show. They are the reason the show exists normally in the first place. Showrunners are normally, but not always, the people who've created the show. And yeah, they are answerable to a certain extent to the network and studio. You do need to take on board what they want to do a little bit, but yes, the buck stops there, basically.
Well, we're seeing a lot of controversy around showrunners. I think that's why why people are finding out who they are. The Killing had a problem with their showrunner. Walking Dead, of course, I think most infamously. So why do you think there's all of a sudden this turmoil with the showrunner? Because you said they're not very answerable to that many people. Where do you think this conflict's coming from all of a sudden?
Showrunners want to bring their own vision to a show. Sometimes that doesn't sit exactly with what the network and the studio want to do with a show. When you get into a situation like that where there's a real creative difference, it can be very difficult to continue in that circumstance. And unfortunately, even though the showrunner may have created the show, they don't own the show. The studio own the show. So if they're not doing what the studio want them to do, that can unfortunately lead to an exit. Which is not necessarily the best thing for the show. But
Yeah, when the captain leaves a ship, it's often sort of a bad idea. So how did the documentary come about? Did you guys work in TV, or is it just something you guys jumped on as a...
Well, for myself, I have a background in performance, but I grew up on a very healthy diet of American television, primarily shows that kind of influenced my understanding of how TV worked and my interest in what goes on in the production of a show would be like the X-Files or Twin Peaks or even the Twilight Zone, going back to some of the forerunners of the job of showrunner before the name even came into ubiquity. You know, Rod Serling being one of the preeminent forerunners of the occupation. The job probably killed him, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like it did.
At a very early age.
You can see him.
It was very interesting to me because he was the singular kind of creative vision behind that and force that, like, literally from start to finish, he was even down to the editing of it back then. That was something that's very rare, unusual thing to have. But Des and I worked together to an organisation called the Los Angeles Irish Film Festival in LA, and
we're both Irish.
I feel like people maybe picking up a very subtle Irish feel.
Okay, cool.
So and then he kind of, we were hanging out quite a bit, and we were watching the same stuff, and we never argued over the remote. And so we just kind of realised that we had a lot of common interests and similar tastes and things, and he kind of came up to this idea. It must have been 4 years ago when you actually finally had the seed of the idea and you started talking about it.
Yeah, I've been kind of, because the interest in showrunners was growing and growing all the time, was kind of tied to the rise of the internet and social media and stuff, and I was just voraciously reading everything I possibly could about people, and I was waiting for someone to make a doc, and no one seemed to be doing it.
So wait a minute.
I was like, ding.
I remember you telling me about it, and I'm like, oh, there's got to be something out there like this. Like, how can this have not been made? Des, we got to make this.
You got some huge names. You have the people behind Boardwalk Empire, Lost, Joss Whedon. How did you land them?
Sheer bloody-minded persistence to a certain extent. I mean, it was certainly very difficult starting off because when I came over originally, like, no one here knew who the hell I was or what was going on or whatever. So it took a certain period of time to kind of build enough kind of momentum and trust and whatever that people started opening doors to us a little bit. I mean, the game changer for us was when we did the interview with Damon Lindelof, because he was a huge name, he was a huge get for us. And he was incredibly helpful, and after we actually did the interview with him, he spent 30 minutes talking with us about, I think you should do this or try this and this, and
like, oh, do you know?
And he's been hugely supportive with us ever since, for which I'm hugely grateful as well. But yeah, people like Joss, I mean, we tried for a long time to go through the agents, that kind of route or whatever, and it just wasn't happening. And by pure coincidence, we were at a meeting one morning with Bad Robot out at the Fringe office, and we walked out the door afterwards, and Joss Whedon was just standing in the parking lot.
A light hit him.
It was like one of those karmic moments where you just kind of...
The fog cleared.
Did you film him right there?
No.
You're like,
it was an ambush interview.
No, but we did ambush him and kind of this hurried 15-second pitch where you just wanted to try and get as much information as possible to make him convinced to do it. And he did agree to do it. And the other amazing thing about that was we filmed the interview with him the morning after the Avengers opened.
Oh, really?
Wow. He was in a really good mood. He was like, sure.
Yeah, but it was also meant to be the beginning of his first vacation in 2.5 years. And he delayed that and gave us time in the morning.
Talking about Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Yeah, exactly. Tell us maybe like an exciting story. You must have sat and heard these like from the trenches tales of all these showrunners like getting everything done.
Don't tell us your best one. Tell us like
tell us the second best.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Second best.
Second best. Give me 1 second. It's not that there's loads of good stories. It's just like I've got to try.
There are loads of good stories.
Yeah, I imagine they're pretty dense. I would guess too.
Trying to summarize and.
Well, with that, you don't have to tell those story. But who's it about? What show is it about? What show?
Well, there's a couple of those. I mean, certainly Damon had some very interesting stories about in relation to Lost. Like when they made the decision, they were in a very unusual position where they were on one of the biggest, most successful shows in the world. It had turned into a worldwide phenomenon, and it was a huge money spinner for ABC. But they also knew that, look, this really is a finite amount of story to tell. We cannot perpetuate this forever. So they went to the network and said, we need to end the show. Which it never happens. It doesn't happen.
It does now. They kind of started it.
Yes, exactly. But ABC at the time were like, "Are you kidding me?" You know. So like that was a very difficult conversation. Eventually, they did work it out how many episodes exactly they were going to do, and they got to end the show on their own terms. But that comes with its own associated difficulties as well, because they told us the story. They were in New York. Himself and Carlton Cuse, who co-ran the show with him, were in New York at some event, and it was the night the Sopranos finale aired, and they watched it.
And they were like, "Oh!"
Well, they watched it and they absolutely loved it, and they went down to breakfast the next morning, and they were talking to everybody, and everybody else was like, "Yeah, that was such a cop out, wasn't it? Such a cop out."
They're like,
and they were
"Oh
like,
boy,
we're in trouble.
We're
in trouble." Yeah, you know, because they already knew where they were going at that point in time. So. Yeah.
Well, for people who are considering being a showrunner, what's the background? Like, someone might be like, "Oh, I didn't know that was an option." Like, what would you say? Like, who usually goes into that job?
Take some accounting classes. If you think it's hard writing, it's not.
Primarily writers. I mean, primarily it's people who've kind of worked their way up through the system. And in a way, it should be, because if you're coming in cold to it, which some people, that is an option that is starting to happen, which is why a lot of people are being assigned a more experienced person to co-run the show with them, and that's generally not a very good working situation.
Yeah.
But for people who've come up through the writer's room is kind of probably still the best way to do it, because there's a huge learning curve in what you need to do, and then when you actually make the jump from writer to showrunner, there's the amount of the workload grows massively exponentially. You're dealing with a whole lot of things you never thought you were going to have to deal with, like budgets and casting.
Accounting,
internal
yes.
Yeah.
Ooh, interesting. Do you have stories about that, internal politics, or nobody wanted to dish?
No,
Oh, good.
People were remarkably candid with us, actually, to the point sometimes where we were kind of sitting there going,
"Could we use this?"
Yeah,
I
it
don't
was
think
like,
you should say that, by the way.
yeah. So it's really worth watching.
Did you put it in the? Did you put it in though?
Yeah,
Is it in the documentary?
No, it's in
oh,
there.
That's great.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, how can people watch it? How can is it going to get?
We're still.
Can we?
I have that question.
We're just about finished post-production on the film, and we have just gotten North American distribution with Submarine Entertainment.
Oh, wonderful.
So the release plans are in the works, but I can't say specifically at this moment in time, but you don't have to wait too much longer.
Do you
The
have a
website is showrunnersthefilm.com.
The movie. Showrunners the movie.
Themovie.com. The
Yes.
Twitter is showrunnersfilm.com.
Yes.
Nice.
Yes.
Well, check it out on Twitter. Have some ideas for them if you can. Short tweets.
Yeah.
Thanks for talking to us, guys. Good luck
thank
with
you.
the film. It sounds
Likewise.
awesome.
Pleasure
Thank
to
you.
meet you
Nice
guys.
talking to
And
you.
you guys stay tuned for plenty more from Comic.